Practices of discipleship. We are in a practices series, fundamentally seeking to answer this simple question. What can I do in my regular life to be a better Christian? What can I do every day to grow as a Christian? What are actual simple things, Pastor, that I could practice that actually have deep value? Because that's what we're seeking. And today's passage is a heavy passage. Paul's tossing around lots of theological words, some of which are a little hard to swallow. Destiny, destruction, lowly and glorious bodies, citizenship, to name just a few. And we can begin to get lost in the weeds of these words amidst all of these things, when in the end, Paul is really just trying to talk about one simple, very basic thing. But just because something's basic doesn't mean it's less valuable. Sometimes we get confused and we forget that the simple things in life can sometimes have the greatest effect on us in life. That just because others might not see it as precious doesn't actually make it less valuable. In fact, part of this series is about trying to find simplicity. Simple things that you and I can do, but things that are very valuable. Because, to the contrary, simplicity in the Christian practice often makes it the most valuable because you can do it. If I did a series on really, really hard things to do, like fasting for 40 days and 40 nights, very few would actually do that. I probably wouldn't want to do that. But there's everyday life that we live. And sometimes there's things we can do. And just because something is simple to understand, though, also doesn't make it easy to do. See, that's the flip side. In this series, I'm going to give you simple things you can do, but they might actually be very hard to follow through on. For example, maybe you've cracked an egg before. And if you've ever cracked an egg, sometimes it goes really well. Sometimes it's very hard. As a simple task, crack the egg. If you've told a kid to do so, you'll also know that that first time they do it, it doesn't come out the way you want it to. But it should be easy. It's an egg. It breaks. But it's hard to do correctly. And even after you've done it 1,000 times, there's going to be that egg that you crack that doesn't come out right. Or exercise. Exercise is a simple thing. Lift the barbell. There you go. You've done it. But if you're going to do it right, it actually takes a bit of focus. And potentially, the weights on those barbells make that really hard to lift. It's a simple thing. Just pick it up. But it weighs 400 pounds, Pastor. You're right. So simplicity can sometimes confuse us and make us think, oh, I got this. And then when you go into it, you find out it's a little bit harder to do. And the practice and skill we're going to talk about today fits this bill exactly. It's simple to understand. You've heard it all before, but it can become very difficult to do. It's highly valuable to us as Christians and has far more benefits to us than we might expect. Abstinence. Now, before you knee-jerk away from me, this word has more to do than what our modern culture has prescribed to it. Because in our modern culture, it's come to simply mean abstain from sexual activity. You know, we talk about abstinence, that's what it is. We got really jazzed on this for the last 60 years in the church as a countercultural push. That's what abstinence means. But that's fine and good. That's a simple version of the word. Abstinence is really just about not doing something that you want to do, or that you find pleasurable, or are seeking to get. Fundamentally, the word comes from abstain, which just means don't do it. Don't do something, usually associated with something you might find enjoyable or desire. For instance, you can practice abstinence around food. We'd call that fasting, or just not eating the things you know that are bad for you. You can practice abstinence around alcohol, entertainment. It goes far beyond these things. Christian abstinence is the practice of purposely removing something from your life with the goal being to improve your life. The reason abstinence has come to be purely about sex is because it's the easiest to describe, and it's quoted a lot throughout the Bible. But that doesn't mean it's the most important. I want us to journey a bit deeper in this word because I believe that this simple practice has massive implications for us as Christians, particularly in Western Christian cultures that live in a world of consumption, consumerism, getting more and more and having it just because you want it. And so it can be a little bit of an antidote, an antithesis for Christians to stand out in this world. So if we look at our passage, this is where Paul goes. Join together in following my example, brothers and sisters. And just as you have a model, keep your eye on those who live as we do. And if we jump to another part in verse 19 there, their God is their stomach and their glory is their shame. What Paul is talking about here is the natural inclination for humans to simply satiate what they want. You'll find this all throughout other various philosophies, particularly Greek philosophy. If you're hungry, eat it. If you're thirsty, drink. If you want wine, consume all you want. If you want sex, have it. If there's entertainment you're seeking, well, there's abundant forms of it. Take it all in. The modern God is the desire to be fulfilled, however it is that you want that to be. The modern glory of a life is one that has it all, right? You look at media, you look at entertainment, you look at movies, you look at social culture, social media. What we uplift is someone that if they want it, they got it. And it's not hard for them to get. That's the best life you could have. Being able to just satiate any desire you want. Not much has honestly changed for 2,000 years. With great opportunity, friends, there can be great problems. And so what we're actually seeking here is a Christian practice, a way to grow in the life of Christ that's in each and every one of us. Abstinence is a practice that gets at the heart of this problem. Because in the center of this passage in Philippians, Paul presents to us the actual way by which we can do this, the actual problem which is at hand in our lives. Because as Christians, we were once dead, and now we're trying to live. But what does that look like? Verse 19. Their mind is set on earthly things, but our citizenship is in heaven. At the heart of this passage is the key to what Paul is trying to describe. As Christians, we're called to conform to our heavenly citizenship. What's that mean? It's a good question, because those are kind of very fancy words. And another way to describe it would be more like Christ. To put off our old ways and put on God's ways. To stop sinning and start living. To move from death to life. To be less of this world and more like God's kingdom. Citizenship is the way Paul tries to describe this because we can kind of generally understand how this works. Citizenship means you want to move from one country to another. When you're a citizen in some country, you have to follow their rules of that country. That's what it means to be a citizen. You subscribe to all the rules that that country practices. If you're a guest there, you should still do that because you'll get in trouble with the law, but you're not a citizen. Which means if you're going to do certain things in the USA, that might not be the same things you can do if you go to, let's say, North Korea. Very different. Probably shouldn't do the same things. Life looks different, and you behave different in the place you call home. And when you change citizenship, if you choose to leave your country and go somewhere else, the general expectation is that you follow the rules of the place you're going to. If you don't like the rules, you can seek to change it, but the goal is to gain and be more like the place you're going. That's how that works. We understand that. But if we're not moving anywhere, Pastor, what does it mean to be a citizen of heaven? We live in this world, and this world is broken. All the ways that we try to do things, the one characteristic true to all Christian understanding of the Bible is that there is sin in this world. And in our lives, there's broken ways of doing things. And none of the ways that human government can do things will all be perfect. No society is going to get it exactly right, and there's a lot of things that's going to get wrong. And our goal, when you become a Christian, is to learn to live more like how God would want you to live than how the world would tell you you can live. This is what it means to change sentiment, learning to live by God's rules and not the earth's rules. So where does abstinence come in? Abstinence is the simple method by which we can help ourselves conform to God's rules better. Sometimes it means giving up something for a season. Lent. You're going to abstain from something so that way that time you can fill up more with God's time. Perfect. Sometimes it means abstinence for life. You know you can't help yourselves when it comes to whatever this is. And so you need to make sure you don't have that as an option in your life. Alcoholism, sexual addiction, foods, whatever it might be. Sometimes, unfortunately, as Christians, because of our broken natures, we have to learn to give up something because we know it's not good for us. And here's where I want us to land today. Because we can sometimes get lost in the focus of the practice and lose sight of why we're doing it. What's the goal? Why do this? Why be more like Christ? Why seek this out? What is the goal? I would argue that abstinence has a wonderful amount of benefits. And really, it's self-control, like I told the kids. That's what we're talking about today. The practice itself can do wonders for you, for your mental health and your physical health. There are plenty of forms of it which are great. Give up sugar, you're going to be better. Give up alcohol, you're going to be better. Give up television, you'll probably be better. Abstain from overworking. Give up sleeping too much. Who knows what it is for you, but most of the time, if you follow through with it, your life's going to be better. But those are just the physical aspects of it. And you might think I'm stretching the point of what Paul's talking about, but I'm not. Paul often goes on to talk about the way a Christian life should look different than the world's life. If Christians are all looking the same as everyone else, what's the point of being a Christian? All those things I just mentioned have a great effect for your well-being, but they're not actually the goal in themselves. And this is important. Christian abstinence is meant to draw you closer to God. The goal isn't the benefit. The goal is God. The goal is Jesus. The goal is to make your life so much more like Jesus that then all those other benefits happen. They're secondary to what we're really trying to do here. We're not trying to just be healthier than everybody else, better than everybody else. We're really just seeking to follow Jesus. And because we're doing that, we happen to get the rest. The goal is having our minds and hearts centered and focused on God in all that we do. And this is important because self-control is hard. All these practices are going to be a little bit hard. And if you've ever tried giving up something, you know that's true. I gave up using my phone once for entertainment purposes for all of Lent. That was really hard. I did not enjoy that 40 days because I'm used to it. I've gotten adjusted to that in my life. I did not find it pleasant. I would find myself just spontaneously starting to reach for it. And you'll find that true in your life. When you give up something you want, it's not going to be immediately you're like, I'm good. You have trained your body and your mind to have that be part of your life. And if you're trying to now take that out, your body and your mind and your life are going to go, whoa now, hold on. We like that. It's even harder to give up something that you like than it is something that you're okay with giving up, because it feels natural to you. That's what abstinence means. That's why it's a little different than just self-control. It's giving up something that you've trained yourself to enjoy and like. And there's nothing innately wrong with it, but you know that it's dominating your life and your time and your energy, and that it's not the best for you. There's nothing in this world that says you should stop doing it. There's no law that says stop doing it, but you know you need to. And that makes it hard. Each of us has our own natural inclinations. Just because you desire it, just because it feels right, doesn't mean it's good in the sight of God. And so we're likely to mess up. We're likely to stumble. We're likely to be found in the kitchen in the middle of our night by our loved one sneaking a piece of cake. It just happens. And when the goal is the earthly benefit, it can be so much harder to keep doing it. We're far less motivated to bother when it's just about our physical well-being. We're far less likely to start doing it again when we fail. When the goal of the practice, though, is to draw closer to God, it changes how you do it. Why you do things often is more important than how we do things. Why we seek to do the mission of Christ, why I want to do something, is going to make it much more possible for me to succeed at it than just knowing that it's good for me or going through the motions of it. Because I'm likely to mess it up, and I need some motivation to keep going. That's what we're looking to do here. In practicing Christian abstinence, our goal is to draw closer to God. And here's a wonderful thing that I think we might miss. As we draw closer to God, our lives will begin to look different in this world. I mentioned at the opening of this sermon that in modern Western culture, we're in a world full of consumption. Consumerism is the name of the game. Ads is how that game's played. And we're generally all just numbers to be used. What would it look like for Christians to stop consuming? What would it look like if Christians stopped consuming? Abstaining here and there, fasting, not taking things, not just growing after it, grabbing it, storing up our things. What kind of voice and narrative could we present to the world? Because let's face it, most of our advertisements and entertainments are all just selling us sex, drugs, and food. And in abundant quantities. Free. It's a buffet, and if you want it, you can find it. And there's nothing saying you shouldn't have it. If you're an adult, it's okay to do whatever you want. Is that not the modern culture paradigm? If you're an adult, do whatever you want. It's okay. It's fine. As long as you're not hurting anybody, we're good. That's not heaven. It's just everybody doing everything that they think is right. What does God want us to do? What is Jesus calling you in your life to do? And that's why I believe, even though it's a very hard practice to do, even when it's simple to understand, self-control and abstinence, ugly word, people don't like it. But it's powerful because it helps us draw closer to God. And when you do that, your life will be better. It's not just to make God happy, because that's not the goal. It's an act in response to knowing that God has done everything God could do for you. He lived and he died on a cross. It's an act of response. You are already saved. We don't do these practices, we don't abstain from alcohol or these things to get saved. This isn't about making sure you have access to heaven. Because note, Paul's already told us, you're a citizen of heaven. You've already gotten the grace part. What we're talking about is responding to that grace. And that frees us up all the more. Because if we stumble or fail, we know God's got our back. He's already helped you make it this far. He's not going to slam the door shut because you failed. He already opened the door while you were failing before. So let us try a bit more to guide our lives to look more like how God would want. This is but one of all these different practices I'll be talking about, but I do believe it is one in our current culture you might find very hard to do. But it might be one that as Christians, people might wonder and think, what is it that they have? They don't have the big boats. They don't have the big houses. I know they're not eating fancy meals. They're just a regular, simple person practicing a simple life. But they're happy. Why? We have Jesus. And that's all we really need. Would you pray with me today? Lord, I thank you that we can come today to worship you. I thank you that we can live lives in the freedom of your love and grace to simply seek you as best we can. That each of us has ways that we can continue to grow in the life of Christ that you have given us. So I pray that you would help us to do that. And know that this journey that we are on has always more ways we can grow. And that it started because of your love. And we thank you for that. We ask these things in your holy name. Amen.